Hello everybody. Let's spend some quality time with the string class. Now in the string class you'll find a lot of interesting information, obviously, as to its capabilities. But the hint as to what you can do with a string lies right here in its definition. And if you're new to C# programming, or you've been around it for a while, but you don't go to the documentation, which would be kind of crazy, right? I suppose. If you don't pay any attention to the syntax section, you're kind of missing a lot of valuable information, because what it says is, first off, it's a sealed class. It's serializable, so this is the serializable attribute right here. So that means you can persist this object to disk or send it over to the network. Serialize it, right? Serializing is kind of like a form of encoding. It's visible. Public sealed means you cannot extend the class, right? So you can't create a subclass of string. It's comparable. Now these are the non-generic interfaces. So it's comparable. It's clonable, so you can clone a string. Comparable means you can compare two strings to each other. Convertible. I'd have to look that one up. Enumerable, so you can iterate over a string. And by iterate, I mean you can step through each character in the string. And these are the generic versions of comparable, enumerable, and equitable. Okay. Now, a string can be accessed like an array. Okay, so that's an important point to keep in mind. Let's take a look at some simple operations on strings right off the bat. So using system, I'm just going to create a short little program here, just in the main method. I'm going to call this operation on strings. Or string ops. I'm going to call it string ops for short. And I'm going to just give it a main method. In a previous video, I went over how to process the string. We might do that. So let's do args. String. Right. So I showed you how to process command line arguments, and so if I just go ahead and do some command line arguments here, I won't have to keep compiling the program so much to demonstrate some points. But so I may process these. So let's go ahead and let's just we'll declare a string. So we'll say string. Let's see, s1 equals hello. Right now, a hello space, I'll say. So we've just created we've defined a string s1. There's our string class. Okay. Now, when you do lowercase string like this, it's the same thing as this, except that's what this is doing right here for you, right? If you didn't have using system, you'd have to say system dot string. Okay. But because we use the using directive, we can use this. This is an alias. This is the object. Okay, this is the actual, in the .NET framework, it's system.string, right? This is a built-in type, and it's called a type alias, right, in C#. So you can use both, right? You can use both in your program. Most programs you see use this right here, right? The lowercase version. It's the same exact thing, in case you were wondering. So, but we'll use it for demonstration purposes, right? S2 equals world. Exclamation point. Okay. Now the first thing we can do is we can get the length of the string. We can let's just do a console out. Right line, and we'll say S1. Okay. So this operation is performed on the instance of the string. So S1 is an instance variable. It contains, or it points, right, to this string object in memory. So we can say length. Now let's see. Let's actually do this right here. We can say S1 plus. Now here we're going to concatenate. This is the concatenation operator. Plus the plus sign, it's called overloading. So within the C# language, certain operators perform multiple things, right? They have responsibilities for multiple operations. So in this particular case, we are going to take two strings and create a whole nother string, right? You never modify, strings don't modify, they're immutable. And what immutable means is that once you create a string, you can't modify the string, okay? When you concatenate strings, you create a whole nother string object. So I'm going to concatenate that with a space. You see this all the time in programming. And I'm going to say S1 plus has a, let's do it this way. Has, and then we'll add the length, characters, period. Nothing like programming on the fly. So what we're doing is we're going to take the string we're going to say hello. This is what's going to print out hello. And in fact, I can get rid of that space. Hello has, right, followed by has. Then we're going to print out the length of that string. So it'll be 5 characters. And then characters. All right, so let's see this run. So I'm going to minimize this window over here. This is the Microsoft.NET documentation page for strings, by the way. So I've saved this file. Here's my command line. So dir, there's my source file right here. String operations is the name of my file. So csc star.cs, and it says that's a warning. So right here it says I've created this variable s2, but it's never used, and I'm okay with that for now. So let's just run it. String ops, hit return. So hello has 5 characters. That's the first operation I want to show you. All right, so now we can concatenate, like I said. So this is showing string concatenation here, even though you may be saying, well, s1.length, doesn't length return an integer? It sure does. But these operators are overloaded to take the object, right? Every object has a toString method. Okay, so what it does, it'll say, it'll take the length, which is an integer, and then behind the scenes, it's doing something like this. Like that. In fact, we can do that too. Let's recompile this thing. We get the same warning. Excuse me. And string ops. Okay, so hello has 5 characters. That's the same code. Okay, well, it's different code, right? But it's doing the exact same thing. Okay. This is sometimes revealing when you show a person that for the first time. They're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Okay. Now, concatenating strings in this fashion is not the most efficient way to do things, right? So if you had a lot of string concatenations that you wanted to perform, you would not want to do that. What you'd want to do instead, and this is a bit of a tangent, you have to use the system.text namespace, and you have to grab from here a class called StringBuilder. I'm going to say StringBuilder SB equals new StringBuilder. Okay. Now, StringBuilder has methods defined on it. So if I want to add these two strings, hello world, right? Then you can do this, right? So notice here I took the space out of hello, and there's no space in front of world, but I believe I can add a space, right? So here I'm going to say sb.add, okay, or append. When in doubt, reference the documentation, right? So we go here, we go to system text namespace, and come down to StringBuilder. I'm not using, excuse my language, I'm not using Visual Studio, and sometimes the IntelliSense that's built into Notepad++ doesn't pop up, right? So there's your StringBuilder class. So we come down to, it's got properties, there's a length. I mean, I'll get actually length right there, and then this chars thing, a lot of people go, what is that? I'll show you what that is. So append, right? And if you look at the append method, we have a bunch of different things. This method is called, this is overloading. This append method is overloaded. We can add bytes, boolean, char, right? Decimal, arrays of chars. We can add the entire array of characters. We can add an array of characters and give it a range within that array. Decimals, doubles. So, okay, and then we got append format. I don't even use half this stuff, right? Clear. So clear is pretty important, right? But if you want to, take a bunch of strings and do operations to strings, that would not be very efficient to do just using the concatenation operator. Let me go ahead and minimize this. Then you want to use the StringBuilder class, right? So we're going to append S1, okay, like this. Now we're going to do sb.append, okay, and we're going to append a char. So we're just going to append a space. Let's see if that works. sb.append S2. So now we're appending world. Now, to get the value of StringBuilder, the string that's inside of StringBuilder, you call the toString method on it. So console.writeLine, we'll say, we'll just go StringBuilder. I'm sorry, sb.toString. Just like that. Now the WriteLine method is also overloaded. Okay, the WriteLine method is also overloaded, and so in fact, let's go look for that thing, right? Because this is kind of an important thing. These are fundamental areas of programming in C# that are often overlooked when you're first starting out learning the language. So I'll open up a new tab here, and we'll go to we'll just go StringBuilder. I'm sorry, we'll go to console.writeline C#. Now we see the console WriteLine method is overloaded, and it's overloaded more importantly for object, right? So again, just like in this example where we fed in s1.length.toString, we can do sb.toString or sb. All right. So now let's compile this program. Let me minimize this window there. And so we should get out hello world. So, let me compile. And it looked like it compiled fine. And string operations. All right, so hello world. So to review, concatenating strings is inherently inefficient. Not necessarily for just doing this right here, right? This is perfectly fine. But if you're doing lots of string concatenations, and you want to append a bunch of strings, especially if you're creating some type of program whose job it is to manipulate lots of strings, then use a StringBuilder class and the append method to add the strings to the object, and then when it's time to grab the entire string that you've created, use the sb.toString method. Now, if you just print it out in the WriteLine, then the WriteLine method for the console is overloaded to take objects. So you can just say WriteLine SB. SB being my variable for my string builder. Okay, now we have a string, right? We can treat a string like an array. So if I wanted to step through the string hello world, which is now part of StringBuilder, inside StringBuilder, right? I can say foreach string s in sb.toString, right? Because that returns a string like this. Now let's say I wanted to step through, so I'm iterating. This is actually, I'm using the foreach because you know, string is enumerable, right? That's why you read that definition, so you can enumerate over the string. And I'll say console.write, and I'll do this star concatenate s plus star. Okay, and then I'll do something like that. Alrighty, and then once I'm all done doing this, I will say console.writeLine, just a plain old writeLine method. Now what happens? So we're going to step through this string that's sb.toString. Now in this case, I believe you have to use toString, string s and toString, and then this s right here is, you can't modify these strings, right? But we can certainly step through them. So let's compile this program. All right. Well, it says you cannot convert type. Okay, so I see what's going on here. CLS. I always make this mistake. Let's go back here. This has to be a char, because what happens is it's going through each element of this string. I'll say C, just make it clear. Alrighty. Sorry for the bum dope there. But we're going to go grab each character out of the string. Okay, if this, I'll do something with a string array. This is not a string array. This is an array of chars. So maybe that's what I should have said up front. A string is an array of characters. You can treat it like an array of characters, right? So here I'm stepping through, I'm going through the string, I'm pulling out each character, and I'm going to write it to the console. So, okay, let's do that again. All right, so that fine, that compiled fine. String ops. Okay, so now we have our, you know, adorned set of characters, right? Hello world. But what if we wanted to change all these to uppercase? Okay, so if you go to the documentation, this is why in my classes, right, I teach classes. I always have my students, as part of their, you know, first couple weeks, or even for, you know, practically the entire semester, standing homework assignment is, hey, go study the documentation, because you know, learning how to program in C or C Sharp is really, you know, the C Sharp language is pretty contained, right, as far as the syntax of it. Yeah, there are some interesting advanced tricky points like generics, right? Generics always throw people for a loop. And now they've entered, and you know, and since 3.3.5, they've had link, and link is kind of a curveball because it looks like Lambda functional programming, right? But for the most part, you know, the language to get stuff done in just the language itself, like for statements and while statements, it's very finite and easy to grasp, right? It's the API that takes you a long time, because you may have an idea of like what to do, but you have no idea what objects already exist. So if you don't go exploring the documentation, you will waste a lot of time reinventing the wheel. So let's come down here. So let's just scroll through here. So we can clone a string. We can compare two strings. We can compare two strings at positions. We can, so in other words, if you were going to write like a compare method that went through each two strings character by character. You don't have to do that because you can that's already done for you, right? All right, you can there's a concatenation operator, which is essentially what the plus operator does, right, in some ways, but there's a method called concant. It's a static. Now, some of these methods are static, right? Well, you can't do them on the instance. You have to use string.compare or string.concant. We can copy a string, creates a new instance of a string with the same value. Copy to, right? In this case, I think we're giving it an array. Ends with, so we can see if strings end with something or begin with something or starts with something. Let's go down here so we get into the S's. Starts with, I think there's a starts with. I gotta learn how to spell. All right, yeah, so replace, starts with, there's starts with right there. All right, replace, remove, substring, there's all kinds of stuff. In fact, there's so many things, right, that string does. It's like one video can't do it all. But let's go back to the code here. Let me minimize this. A very helpful thing to do is, like, let's say that we wanted to take the string and make it an uppercase, right? All we have to do is call the toUpper like that. Now our strings are going to be, our characters are going to be, the string will be converted to uppercase, and then that string is what's going to be iterated over. So let's save that. Let's go ahead and recompile. And let's clear the screen. And let's run it. Right now, if you notice, all the characters are uppercase right there, right? All right. So let's go back to the documentation and so here's what else. So here, this is an example of iterating over the string with a for each statement. But you can also do this. You could say for int I equals 0, I less than s2 or sb. We'll just say with sb dot toString. Oh, I'm sorry, sb dot length, right? Semicolon I plus plus. Now, open brace, closing brace. So let's go console. Dot write. Let's kind of do the same thing here. I'm gonna do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do it a little bit different way. I'm going to say, I'll use a different. I'll use this right here. I'll use a %sign. Percent plus. Now, sb dot toString. Let's see if I can do that. This might be a little weird. All right. So I get the string. Here's what's happening. You know what I may have to do? Well, I'm going to try that, because if I don't have to put a parentheses around this, then that might work right there. Depends on the what do you call it? Not operator precedence of this right here, because there is an operator defined as an array operator on a string, or indexer is what they call it. So plus another space and another %sign, and I'll do the old that right there. Oh, how did I do it up there? Yep. All right. Now hit return. And then when I get done with that, I'm just going to do another write line. Alrighty. Now, let's compile this thing and see if I messed it up. It looks like it's fine. That, my friends, usually throws people for a loop right there. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm saying sb.toString, the string that's returned from this operation right there, from that method, I'm going to apply the indexer operator, which is that chars. If you go back, let's go back to the documentation for string, and we come up to the properties. we have this chars property. Okay, it gets the char object at a specified location in the current object, right? So in other words, it's an indexer, right? So let's minimize this window. Let's return to the console and run it. All right, so there's our now. Oh, okay. So you notice how we did the 2-upper on this one, right? Like that. Well, you know, we didn't do the 2-upper on this one. Okay, so those percent signs make it a little hard to read what we're doing. So we can return now. If we wanted to do 2-upper, we would just say dot 2-upper like that, and then leave that indexer there because it's still a string. This whole thing now is going to bring us a char, uppercase char at this point. So let's compile, clear the screen. Well, compile, clear the screen, and run the program. There we go. So you know, when I do this, I'm hitting my up arrow key on my keyboard to get that next thing. That's usually, people go, wow, you can do that? Yeah, so I'm going to the next command. You know, seasoned programmers know this stuff because they watch these videos, not my videos in particular, but the more you do programming, the more material, the more books you read, the more people you talk to, the more of these little tricks that you learn, right? Keyboard shortcuts are very handy. And you know, if you come from a generation, this is way off topic, right? that didn't grow up with the old, you know, command prompt. I remember a time, and I'm probably giving my age away, when you turn on the PC, that's what you saw, right? You saw the C colon, right? You saw this prompt, right? A, except it was like this. Hold on, CLS. It was this. I don't have an A drive, so I can't go there, right? So it was an A colon / blinky light, and you were lucky if there was something else there. You had to put floppy disks in. Yeah, I'm probably admitting something I shouldn't admit. Okay, let's see here. So, and that's enough for this video. So string operations. If you need to concant a few strings, doing the concatenation operator with a plus sign operator, you know, overloaded, right? This is fine. If you want to do string operations with a lot of strings and you want to append them together, then use StringBuilder class and use the append method. In order to access the string, you use the StringBuilder toString to get to the string that it contains, and then once you have a string, you can do any kind of string operations that are authorized. You can step through a string like an array. You can use a foreach statement, or you can use a for loop, right? And just use array notation to get to each character, right? So there we go. Operations on strings. This is not by any stretch of the imagination a comprehensive video on all the operations, but the lesson is strings are powerful. You use them all the time in your programs. Practically every object has a toString operator of some sort. Not necessarily implemented, right? But like your integer, all your fundamental types, like, you know, bytes, bit, you know, double, float, right? You can convert them to strings. Just hit toString operator. Let's see here. Well, in a lot of cases, objects, the toString operator just gives you the type, right? It'll say, oh, that's an int, or that's a this, right? But for your numeric types, it'll give you the ASCII equivalent of the character equivalent of what that is. Now, okay, that's about it. I can't think of much else to say for this video. I appreciate you joining me. I hope this helped. Very, 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 very basic intro level stuff, but handy if you need to know it. Have a good day. Thank you for joining me.